Sea of Thieves has had many memes throughout the years, from the Captain Look meme from the beta to the clip of Falcor meeting some very friendly French players.
We don't like Spanish, we kill all Spanish for the king of the French.
But as far as infamy goes for the player base, no other has enraged the community in the same way as
Face my flames.
That's right, in our next episode of Update Retrospectives, let's talk about the Haunted Shores update, its content, and how it delivered a meme so annoying the developers chose to remove it. Haunted Shores marks one of Rare's best updates and dropped on the 17th of June 2020, right in the middle of the monthly update system. Haunted Shores added a world event, a bunch of new cosmetics, loads of new shanties, and more. Kicking things off then with the meat of the update, Rare added a new world event featuring Captain Flameheart's ghostly skull in the sky as a marker. Wherever he would invade, a ghostly fleet would patrol that island. The ghost ships were weaker than their skeletal friends, but used their numbers and ghostly cannonballs as a means to attack. These were Phantom Cannonballs, Flame Phantom Cannonballs, and the infamous Wraith Ball. The first two really just act like extended ammunition for regular balls and firebombs. However, the Wraith Ball was the equivalent of a shotgun blast, putting multiple holes in a ship and dealing massive knockback. All of these cannonballs were rewarded for defeating the world event and were dropped in a crate left behind by the final ship. The event previously consisted of 2 waves of normal ghost ships and 2 captain waves. The captain waves alternate with the regular waves and feature 3 stronger ships sailing in formation, flanked by 2 normal ghost ships. These were always depicted as the Ashen Dragon from the Seabound Soul Tall Tale. The final boss wave had 2 Ashen Dragons and the Burning Blade, the latter being protected by 4 regular ghost ships. Each boss ship dropped loot, but the final wave ships dropped even more, with the Captain Skull of the Damned. Their significance will be explained a bit later on. I loved how this world event differed from the skeleton ships. As the skellies were clearly more aggressive and intelligent, the ghost ships could use superior firepower or their numbers to overwhelm you. The ghost ships would even drop kegs behind or damage the ship should they pass through you. I also loved how this continued the tradition of adding new tools as rewards for triumphing over a world event, with a new dynamic where you could use this as an offensive tool to would-be thieves on your sea. Oh, and did I mention the world event had new ghostly loot and storage crates, with the latter sellable to the Merchant Alliance? This was all tied together by the most infamous meme in Sea of Thieves history. Flameheart has a tirade of insults to throw at players, but the most famous one will always be,
Your supplies must be dwindling by now.
This is something we all still reference today, and many a meme template has been adapted to suit it. It's not that it was even bad when doing the world event, but Flameheart's range was massive, and he would be shouting at you as if you're trying to do the world event. Fuck off, Flameheart, I'm just trying to complete my merchant commendations. To be even more obnoxious, the world event would reset every time someone would sail through it. Usually, world events would despawn after around 30 minutes if no one contests them, but the clock would be reset to 30 minutes frequently. If you could hear Flameheart shouting at you, the time had been reset. This was great at first, however, when we consider how common Flameheart was as a world event, and over time the wow factor would wear off, people would be getting extremely pissed off about this. From constant complaints on Twitter, to whole fucking songs made about it. Many people had grown tired of the poor guy. Rare reduced the frequency and range of his tirades, but that would not save him from his damnation. In February 2022, Rare pulled the plug on the world event due to several complaints from fans, with one fan even submitting a class action lawsuit for stress induced by the man himself. The event was removed due to overwhelming backlash. Note, if anyone tells you it was related to adventures, tell them the truth, because Rare didn't remove him for the narrative or immersion. End of discussion. The world event also doubled up as an Order of Souls voyage. You could do a smaller 2-wave version that ended up with no Phantom Cannonballs and only 1 Captain Skull of the Damned. It was a clever reuse of content, even if the Gold Hoarders and the Merchant Alliance got much cooler voyages later on. It's probably my least played voyage, but only because the world event was much better, and you could progress the new cosmetic commendations through the world event too. Speaking of cosmetics, we got some decent stuff in Haunted Shores. The Ghost Captain sails were unlocked for turning in 50 Captain Skulls of the Damned, and are modelled off the Captain ships seen in the Order of Souls voyages. The greatest sales of all time also came with this update. The Burning Blade sales could be unlocked if you defeated the Burning Blades 10 times. These are the first, and to this day, only parts of the Burning Blade available to use. Iconic, fearsome, and gorgeous. They're also much harder to get than the Ashen Dragon sales, so you can have something glowy without people accusing you of being a noob. I think both these sales, while stunning, mark the serious issues Rare would have when delivering earnable cosmetics. I believe this is the point where things deteriorated and sort of came to a head much later in 2022, but that is a story for another time. There was, of course, the Black Market too, although if you've seen the rest of this series or played during the monthly update cadence, you would know this is pretty standard. The Wild Rose clothing items were finished off as the desirables for doubloons, with the Inky Kraken equipment filling in for the goodies for gold. Not a bad month, the latter is more my taste, and even then, I've since moved on from this set. The ship remains awesome though. The Wild Rose stuff is really popular though, maybe because it's tied to a great tall tale, or I'm just out of touch. Let me know in the comments if you're a Wild Rose enjoyer. The Emporium will continue to run until the game's last update. Haunted Shores was no exception. Most of this stuff is pretty standard, the Blighted ship set, some emotes and collector's pets, you know, the usual suspects. However, it wouldn't be Sea of Thieves without a bit of spice. Something in the Emporium pissed off a bunch of people. You know, earlier I mentioned the downtrend of earnable cosmetics? Well, this was a contributing factor. Rare went ahead and released the Ghost outfit for pets, only available to pirates who reached rank 20 in Athena's Fortune. This was especially bad when you consider the only other reward was the Ghost Cutlass. People reacted poorly. Even though the Thieves Haven run was added 3 months prior, players had been begging for actual legend content since launch. Whacking a microtransaction behind a paywall was in poor taste in the context of those community requests. I see the logic, as pets have to be bought, unless you want to spend 100+ weeks on insiders to get a cat. Luckily, this hasn't happened again, but remember this as the saga goes on in the coming weeks. With all the doom and gloom out of the way, we'll talk about one of the best features of any update. Haunted Shores launched with 7 new shanties. Yes, we only had 4 shanties at launch. Essentially, as far as I remember anyway, the devs had an issue with RAM on the Xbox One when the game came out. The shanties were pretty much being streamed to you, so they could only fit in 4 at once. With that technical hurdle overcome, 9 new shanties were released. These were Seek the Dead, The Maiden Voyage, Summon the Megalodon, Stitch's Sorrow, 1812, Jolly Good Fellow, Happy Birthday, We Shall Sail Together, and Who Shall Not Be Returning. As you can see, a lot of these were fan favourites. It honestly sounds trivial, but this sort of stuff goes such a long way for such a small feature. Over 2 years, listening to the same songs over and over again can make a man go crazy. Although now I just play Who Shall Not Be Returning. Weird. To top it off, we got a shanty radio so you can pick what we want on demand. Before, you had to shuffle and hope you get the shanty you wanted. It was pretty much the Sea of Thieves equivalent of not having Spotify Premium. This courtesy was also extended to more phrases on the pirate chat, and improved cannibal radio for selecting specific cannibals, and faster retracting for the harpoon. Now, come to think of it, I have no fucking clue how we survived without the new radio. Anyway, Haunted Shores was small on paper, but ended up being a case of quality instead of quantity. I'm sure I can forgive it for being a monthly update. And when you consider it released after some great updates, even preceding another certified banger. More on that next week. Anyway, if you liked the video, don't forget to subscribe and drop a like if you haven't already. I'll be continuing the series again next week with a very special update and a personal favourite of mine. Thanks again for watching, and as always, I'll see you in the next video.